Hello and welcome to another episode of AIB Podcast. Your host, Stephen Maxted. And today we have Samantha Fast on, business, music, savvy speaks. We had a laundry list of things. It could have been many things, but thank you, Samantha, for joining us today. And we're excited to get into it. Since we connected on the podcast front, and we've been chatting more leading up to today's episode. I'm excited to have you on and chat about your story. Seems like you've done a lot of things. We'll chat about where you're headed to and where you've been, what you're doing now. So thank you so much for making time to be on the podcast today. And if you want to start off maybe by doing a little intro on yourself, that would be awesome. And then we'll get chatting about you.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm really excited to be here. This is my very first podcast, actually. So I'm very excited. Yeah. So, my name is Samantha, and I am a woman of many different hats, I guess you could say. So I'm an entrepreneur, I think, in every aspect of the word. So I started off in commercial real estate and eventually built my own commercial real estate company. But I have also since expanded into other things and looking into new ventures. So I'm also a professional Latin dancer, and I've competed at the national and international level. I have a gold medal at the national level and a silver medal at the international level. I'm also a professional kizomba dancer and instructor. So so that's kind of been taking up most of my time for the past few years. I've really kind of dove into the world of kizomba, starting off with training and learning to become an instructor. And now I'm also actually an international DJ for kizomba as well. And I am also starting a new venture as a keynote speaker, and I'm actually thinking of starting my own podcast as well. So
Awesome.
So keynote speaker and podcaster, just generally because I like to speak to interesting people and learn about interesting things. So I think this is a good avenue into that world.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's fantastic. As you were even talking here, because there was a lot that we would chat about before, but the real estate side of things, I've spent a little bit of time in there, and we've had a few folks in that industry on. I think it's very fascinating. It's such a diverse background, you're right, and you've had great success, really highlighting the high performing folks that we do have on in every sense, both business and the athletics, which is typically who we're having on here. You're just covering all of the categories at once, which is super cool to see. And it's almost not so foreign, or shouldn't be a big surprise in many ways, as a lot of folks who are high performers are checking off boxes in multiple categories, and it's not seen as just all over the board, but just the ability to take that skill set of being a high performer in one thing and put it into another thing that you want to be focused on. I think is a really amazing trait that a lot of folks we've had on, including yourself, share in common. So it's neat to hear you speak about it. And I don't know where we want to start today. There's so much. What was what got you started in the whole business side of things? Was there one moment that got you kind of being more entrepreneurial in a sense, or has it just been hardwired from day one and this is just how you operate?
Yeah, I think it's probably just how I operate. Like, I'm very much a person who I don't necessarily enjoy like following the standard path, quote unquote. Oh, you can't really see my quotes. But anyways, the standard path,
Gotcha.
I've always been a person who feels like I go a little bit against the grain. I really enjoy like charting my own course and finding things out for myself. And
Yeah.
I guess my life has really been about this journey of really finding those things that really speak to me. Like at a soul level. And
Yeah.
so like learning to really trust your intuition and doing the things that work for you versus doing the things that might work for other people but just don't apply to you or don't feel right to you.
Right.
And entrepreneurship has been really about kind of charting my own course. I think a lot of it is also about just like the freedom that's associated with entrepreneurship. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, though, I think, because sometimes I feel like I work harder and longer hours as an entrepreneur, um, to
Yeah.
going after those things that I want than if I would just like kind of settle down and you know get a job kind of thing. And so sometimes life would be easier maybe if you took the standard path, but I don't think it would be necessarily nearly as interesting. So and I really enjoy thinking outside the box and learning about things outside the box, doing things differently, and having those experiences. So that's really what drives me at the end of the day.
I think it's an awesome recap. What was one of your first jobs?
One of my very first job was doing some filing at my
Okay.
yeah, filing at my dad's clinic. My dad is a retired neurologist, and so back in the day, they used to have all their charts on paper charts, and
Right.
yeah, and so you had to take that information and put it into the computer. So like very detail oriented information. So I did that for a couple of summers, like when I had school off, and then I also I worked at the relay store at the airport.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it was kind of fun actually because you have to go through like a whole security protocol, and so
Yeah.
you can, yeah. So because then you get access to the other side, like beyond security with the badge or whatever. So you have to go through this whole security protocol. But it was kind of interesting because you get to like see parts of the airport that you don't normally get to see. So I did that for like 1 or 2 summers as well during my off seasons, yeah, from school. So
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
very familiar with the shops. Yeah, I mean, in there. Yeah, I type for a sec. So now after kind of first jobs, we'll say, what was like that point where you started to just be on your own outside of having kind of like summer jobs or employment kind of thing? Because I know you worked
Mm,
in real estate where you're kind of like self-employed, I guess,
mhm.
to some degree and really in charge of your own time. It's not really like you're
Yeah,
employed,
well,
but
it took
kind of.
me Yeah, sorry. It took me a
That's
while to
good.
get to that point. So I would
Yeah.
say like my journey into entrepreneurship is actually like it's actually fairly new that I've been, completely on my own and doing that. It's something that I've been working towards and I kind of built it up. Like I had a vision for my future and what I wanted. And so it took me um I don't know, at least 10 years to get to that point, so
Yeah.
I started off in real estate, right, like fresh out of university. So I kind of made the decision in university that real estate would likely be the thing that I pursued. And then I continued in further education in real estate, but then also working in different jobs in real estate at the time. And then on the side, I was like slowly building my business up from there. So I was working 2 jobs at once, basically, like building my own business while I was working full time too. So yeah, but I've done many, many different things in real estate. So I started off in appraisals, and then I went into sales and leasing, and then I did what was after sales and leasing? Then I did like in-house financing, and then I did commercial development, and then I took a break to go back to university to do my MBA,
Okay.
and then after that I did a short stint as a REIT manager. So I was managing an industrial REIT in that's based out of Calgary, and then after that, it was when I decided to kind of strike it out on my own and see how that went. You know, you get to a point where you just have to kind of like bite the bullet and do it, or it's like either now or never kind of thing. And so that was the point for me. And so I went full time on my own, and then that was also at the point in time that I started really going into this um, DJing, and now I'm also doing music production as well. So that was kind of the beginning of the DJing, music production, dance instruction world as well. So,
Cool.
hmm
That's fantastic. What you mentioned going for an MBA. What was one of the biggest learnings you had in the MBA program?
well, that that's a bit of a sore topic for me, honestly, because I started my MBA in 2019, and so I
Okay.
actually only
Oh,
got one semester that was
right.
fully in person, and then everything else was online. So
Right.
it was a bit of a different experience than I had expected. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
As soon as you
and
said the timing, I'm like, okay, I see where you're going with this.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so it was kind of an interesting time because you know, I was in Winnipeg, right? And then that's when I decided to go back to school to get my MBA. And so I had applied and got accepted to the University of Calgary. And one of the reasons that I went there was because they had a real estate stream, right? And so like one of the
Cool.
goals for the MBA was for me to go
Right.
and learn more about real estate, and just kind of I wanted to like dot my i's and cross my t's and make sure that I actually knew everything that I thought I knew, and build up other skills that I was missing in real estate. And so that was why I
Yeah.
made the decision to go there. So then I actually ended up, like, I sold everything. I sold my house, like I sold all my furniture. Like I had absolutely nothing other than my clothes, basically, right? And so then I moved like all the way across the country to Calgary, and I didn't really know anybody there. So I was in Calgary by myself. I had like one or two people that I knew, but not really that many. So I didn't have like a support system necessarily when I moved. And then COVID hit, and I was like very, very much isolated, at the time. And so when COVID hit and everything went online, and so that was when I started kind of traveling back and forth. And so then I would go back home and be with my family for a little bit, and then I would go back to Calgary and I would be there for a little bit. And so that was part of like the beginning of learning about this sense of like I want to be free to have control over my own time, as well as because I had that time and I had that flexibility during my studies during COVID. And so that was also
Right.
part of what led into that.
That makes sense. I would
Yeah.
be incredibly bummed as well. I've looked at that
Yeah.
program a few times, and I think one of the major benefits, and probably where you were leaning with this too, would be like in person, maybe like
Is
not
networking,
the
right? It's
networking. Yeah.
networking. Like one of the big
Yeah.
things about getting an MBA is networking. And so
Yeah.
I did one of the things that I loved about this program though is we had a class, and it was such a good cohort of people because the real estate program is actually not that popular. I think maybe it's gaining more popularity now, but when I was in it,
Right.
there weren't that many people who were taking it because it's a fairly new program. And so the people that I was in a class with, there was like six of us that were regularly in all of the main classes. And so one of our classes only had six students, and we
Right.
became we became quite close, like quite good friends, right? Working on
Yeah.
these projects together. Um So that was a really amazing experience, and the teacher as well, the not the teacher, the professor as well was really amazing too. And so we just created this, we had a really good bond, and we created this amazing synergy together. And so I would say that was probably like the main highlight of my university experience, was that networking and that bonding and that connection that I made with that group of people. But
Cool.
yeah, that's one thing that kind of irks me a little bit, is that I didn't get the experience that I thought I was going to get because of COVID. But I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
people's lives were turned upside down by COVID. So yeah.
No, no, that totally makes sense. I just I'm always curious, and if anyone's ever on and kind of mentions like a secondary education, I always love to ask about it outside of a degree. It's an area I know a lot of entrepreneurs explore, or sometimes there's kind of a different path, either like not a lot of education at all, and it's just
Hmm.
interesting to hear everyone's story in that regard. But I totally agree. The whole like networking thing definitely would have been a driver for me, or reason to, yeah,
Yeah.
take that path.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, well, that's neat to know. And now the DJing thing. Let's switch. So how did, because we'll talk about like dancing and some of the medals and the success you've had there, but what
Yeah.
specifically got you into that side of music? And I guess back up even further, but has music always been a part of the journey? Is family super musically inclined, or what does that look like for you?
No, I would say like my family is not actually like super inclined to music. My mom, she always had music playing in the house, but it was like very different kind of music. My mom's a huge fan of opera, and so we actually
Oh,
listened to a lot of opera growing up. And then like
interesting.
so, yeah, it was like opera during 90% of the year, and then Christmas stuff during Christmas
Okay.
time, right? So it was like,
Two seasons.
yeah,
Yeah.
2 seasons, opera and Christmas.
Cool.
So that was kind of like my world growing up in terms of exposure to music. I guess the for me, music, when I was a teenager, I would say I wasn't really very exposed to top 40 stuff, or like
Okay.
mainstream stuff. So actually what I was listening to when I was a teenager was Japanese pop. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, my sister and I, we went through like a Japanese anime phase, which really, really shaped our futures actually.
Yeah.
And so most of my music exposure was to Japanese pop. And so I have a lot of experience listening to music in foreign languages, which, has like broadened my mind in terms of like exposure to other cultures when it comes to music as well. And so that was
Cool.
basically the music that I listened to probably until I started university when I was 17. And then when you're in university, I don't know about you for your university experience, but like with that first year of university, when you don't really know what's coming and you're just like overwhelmed with all the readings and stuff like that. And so music kind of fell to the wayside until I started dancing again. Well, not again, but until I started dancing. And so then when I started
Yep.
dancing, I started off in Latin dances. And so I started listening to Latin music, like salsa music, basically salsa bachata
Okay.
music. And then through Latin dances, where I gained exposure to the world of Kizomba. And then I really like when I first started gaining exposure to the world of Kizomba, and I really just like I fell in love with the music. So even though
Right.
I didn't have the brain capacity or the time to focus on Kizomba as a dance, that's when I really started listening to the Kizomba as a music. And so I started like doing a deep dive on the music and just finding and curating songs that really spoke to me and like made me feel something inside. But because I had that previous exposure and experience of listening to music in other languages and from other cultures, like from Japan and Latin America, it really opened my mind to what's out there, other than just like the top 40 that most people are listening to on the radio, right?
Yeah.
So that's how I got into the world of kizomba music. And then it was also during COVID, because I had been dancing. I'd been performing and competing salsa and bachata dancing for like 6 years or something at that time already. And when COVID hit, and obviously all of the dancing and competing stopped, right? All of the public performances and everything stopped, and so I actually had time to study and learn about new dances. And so this was kizomba was a dance that I had always been interested in and intrigued by, but I just didn't have the time to dedicate to it. So that was during
Yeah.
COVID that I started dedicating more time to it. And what I realized, because also Alberta has had less restrictions than Manitoba for COVID, so we were actually able to have gatherings and stuff. And so that's how I started getting more involved in the kizomba scene in Calgary. And
Interesting.
and so I started realizing that, we have people here who are interested in, and at that time everyone was craving things to do, right? And so it
Right.
was, we people wanted it, there was a demand for it, but we did not have anybody who could provide the music, for these events, right? And so I had a friend at the time, and because I'm spending my time curating and finding these songs, right? And so then I would just send them randomly to people, and I'd be like, oh, maybe you'll like this song, or here's a cool song that I found. And I would send them to people. And then I had a friend of mine say, like, you have really good taste in music. Like, have you ever thought about being a DJ? And at the time I was
Oh my
kind of
gosh.
like, me being a DJ? Like, that's crazy. Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Yeah,
And
but the seed was planted, like the seed was planted in my brain. And so I probably was thinking about it for about a year or something before I actually took action on it. And so then I started throwing the idea out to other people. And I was like, what do you think about this idea? Like, you think I should try being a DJ? And I had some people kind of discourage me, but I also had some people who are very encouraging and you're like, yeah, like, why not? And so
cool.
so eventually I bought like a deck. I had a friend who was helping me out behind the scenes, and I bought my
Yeah. Yeah.
very first like little mini deck or whatever, like travel deck. And I bought it in January of 2022 or something like that. January 2022. And then it sat there on my desk for like 6 months or something because I was so intimidated by it. Even though it's such a baby deck, now I look at it now compared to my big deck that I have now, and I'm
Yes.
looking at it and I'm like, oh, really? This was scary to me, but it was so scary.
Yeah.
And so I took it out of the box and I put it there. And every once in a while, I would look at it and I would like talk to it and be like, you don't intimidate me.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I started because like when you're learning something new, I don't know if you're like this too, but when you're learning something new and you don't want to show like how ignorant you are about it, and so then you don't ask for help, which you should just be asking people for help, honestly. And so I started doing my own like YouTube tutorial videos and stuff and watching all of this. And like I really wanted to
Cool.
learn, because it's not even just the deck that you have to learn, you also have to learn the DJ software, right? And I'm
Right.
not like super technologically inclined. And so then this DJ software is super intimidating too, right? And so
Yeah.
there's all the buttons that you have, buttons and knobs and sliders and stuff like that you have to learn how to do. And then you have to learn how the DJ software works, and like, where do you find your songs, and like, how do you know, like, how do you work the programs, and what do these buttons do? And there's like 3 buttons that say Q, and why do they all do different things? And so it was a learning curve. And I think I did my very first gig at a dance studio in the spring of 2020 to 2022. And then I started traveling at that time. So I kind of just like it sat on the back burner for a while. And then when people started hearing, because there are not a lot of kizomba DJs in Canada. Like there's not that many, and especially when you start getting into the West, because you know how Canada is separated East and West, right? So like
Yep.
there's a lot of DJs in Toronto. Well, not a lot, but there's more DJs in Toronto and Montreal, right? But then in the rest of Canada, there's like 3 DJs, right? So there's not a lot of us, right? And so then I have a friend of mine who runs events in Saskatoon. And so then when she found out that I was starting to DJ, and she's just like, oh, like, I'm going to start my events up again after COVID. Like, I'd really like you to have a DJ. So I got my very first booking for an event in Saskatoon. And that's when that was
Cool.
in, yeah, April of 2023, I believe. And so then,
That's awesome.
yeah, that was my very first booking. And then I started, like, I was listening to those sets, and like one of the things that, there's so much like professional judgment that goes on, and so like
Mm.
one of the things was like, you're not a real DJ if you're not like posting sets or whatever. Someone had said this to me at some point in time. So I was like, okay. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start posting my sets. I'm going to start putting myself out there. But I kept like
Yeah.
waiting for the perfect set, right? And then I realized like there's no such thing as a perfect set. Every set's going to have a mistake in it of some sort. So I just kind
Gotcha.
of got up the courage, and I started posting my sets on my SoundCloud, and I would put it on my Facebook. And then
Okay.
I had this organizer from Paris who I'm friends with on Facebook, and he saw that I was posting sets, and he's like, I didn't know you were a DJ. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm just kind of starting, and I haven't done a lot of gigs yet, but I'm just getting started. And then he said to me, well, you should come to Paris, and you should just like come, and I have a festival in the summertime, and you can come and DJ here a little bit. So then I went and I started DJing in Paris.
Cool.
So it was um, in the summer of 2023 that I went to Paris, and I had my like very first like international gig, which was pretty exciting for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
No
kind of
kidding.
just started snowballing from there. And eventually I moved from just DJing. So I had done some training when I was there as well. I had done some training with a DJ that friend. He's a good friend of mine, and also someone that I really look up to and respect. And he basically said, if you really want to get your name out there, you're going to have to start producing music, because it's when people hear your name that they
Right.
in like at socials and stuff, that they start wanting to bring you. And so then that's when I kind of started on my DJ or like music production journey as well. And so
Right.
I released my very first song in December of 2023. I did a collaboration with that DJ friend of mine. And then I've since released last year, I think um, I released 11 songs in total. So would be 7 singles and one EP album. And then, yeah, I'm working on a few
Cool.
other albums right now, like mini albums. So I think I have like 3 or 4 in production right now, and
Okay.
some
Cool.
singles on the way. I have a single coming out on Valentine's Day. So,
Okay.
um, yeah, so that's like, a week from
Awesome.
now or something like that. But yeah,
Yes. Something like that.
yeah.
Coming up. It's
Coming
yeah,
up. It's coming
within the
up.
month.
So stay
Yeah.
tuned. So
That's so cool.
yeah.
That's so neat.
So sorry, I was like not giving you room to speak because I'm so
What are you
passionate
talking
about this
about?
subject.
No, no, this is the whole point.
I love
Yeah, we're
DJing,
here
and
to
I
listen
love
to you.
music so much. So
No, this is fantastic. This is exactly what we want to hear.
good.
Um, that's super awesome. Sounds like you're just such an adaptable learner, like within these different spaces, right? You're just kind of able to grab the stuff, jump into it, figure it out as you kind of made light of your tech savviness, but it seems like you've been fine. Like seems like that was not a big thing, but I totally relate to that comment early on when you're talking about that stuff, because even some of the equipment that we use for here or recording with the marketing company and part of the team uses it a lot better than I do. But it's so funny to look
Yeah.
back on things like you said, like you're like look back on that first deck, I believe is what it's called, and you're just kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, like whatever. That was so simple, right? That was child's play. Um,
Yeah, yeah. It's so
but
interesting to me because like that the deck was really, really small, right? And so now I'm on a bigger machine, and I mean traveling with it is not easy, right? But I'm on a bigger
right,
machine, and even I went through the whole process again, right? When I got this new
upgraded,
machine, right? And I decided,
yeah,
okay, now it's time for an upgrade, and then I upgraded to this new machine, and then the same thing happened. It just sat there on my desk, and I was like, man, you're scary looking. But eventually I got over my fears, and now I just like I love playing with it because it just the like the way that you can express yourself is so much more diverse, and like there's so many more
interesting,
options available to you when you're using like a full kit of equipment versus something like the one that I had. It was a very good one for traveling or for like
right?
DJing by the beach or whatever, like just chill parties and stuff. But when you really want to like up your game and up your level and what you can do, yeah, working with the proper equipment really makes a difference.
Yep,
Hmm.
I definitely think that way. Now,
Yeah.
okay, can we cover a bit of business, little music?
Yeah.
Now we have the Savvy Speaks. I feel like this has been going on for a little bit though, in general. I might
Mm.
be wrong about this, or what's cooking there?
Yeah, so Savvy Speaks is my latest project. So, and the origin story, it actually does go back to the music. Like the Savvy Speaks was born of DJ Savvy, which is my DJ name.
Okay, I was
Um,
gonna ask. That's so me. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad you brought that up. I was thinking we were talking. I'm like, I gotta come back to that at some point.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And so Savvy
sweet,
Speaks was kind of like an evolution of DJ Savvy, because what
cool.
I really the thing that I love about DJing is the way that I can really touch people through music. It's such an amazing experience and such an amazing feeling when you're able to really inspire and uplift and touch people's hearts and souls through music. And so one of the
Right.
things that really made me want to do Savvy Speaks is when I started DJing and people started coming up to me and they started saying, like I was so inspired by you, like I couldn't believe the music was so good, and I had to look at the DJ and I couldn't believe that it was a woman was one thing. Or like the music, I was only planning to stay for like 15-20 minutes or whatever. I just came to say hi, but the music was so good that I ended up staying for three
Sure.
hours. Or
That's cool.
yeah, or I recently played a set in Paris for New Year's, and the feedback that I got from this particular set was that like I like just took them on such a journey that like really like went down and deep into their soul to them. They couldn't like they can't even explain the experiences they have, right? But it's just basically like people coming up to me and saying how much that I was inspiring them through music. And
Very cool.
selfishly or not, like that makes me feel good, like when I know that
Yeah.
I've had a positive impact on somebody, when I know that I've made somebody's day a little bit better, when I know that like I was able to have that like kind of impact and feeling on someone, like it feels good. And I was like, how can I do this? How can I do this in a way that impacts
Right.
more people, right? Because um the Kizomba world and is a very small world, right? And so like I wanted to have more impact on more people and
Right.
actually like speak to things that I'm passionate about as well. I don't know if you can tell, but I actually really enjoy speaking. and and so I had a friend of mine because I enjoy these kinds of conversations, these in-depth like philosophical conversations. And I had a friend of mine who said to me, a couple friends of mine actually, who said to me, you know, you speak really eloquently, and like you're the things that you talk about are actually really interesting. And so I had a couple of friends say, like, have you ever thought of becoming a public speaker or anything like that? And I kind of thought like, hmm. And that, again, it was like one of those things
You have
that stuck
some
in my
great friends. You have some
yeah.
great friends. They're just getting you into all
Yeah.
these things, basically. They're
Getting me
planting
in
the seed.
trouble, getting me in trouble, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, these little seeds
Oh
that get
God.
planted, and you just can't shake it, right? You just can't shake it. And so
Yeah.
that sat with me for a little bit. And so then I started thinking, like, okay, like, how do I make this work? And so I
Sure.
actually first started, because a lot of speakers, they actually do coaching and stuff on the side. And so I
Yep.
actually started, I did a coaching course. Like, so I'm actually also a certified life coach. So I started with
Of course.
coaching. Of course.
In a very great way. I don't know. That's awesome.
Yeah. So so I went through this coaching certification program, and then I was kind of, but then I was on tour at the time, right? And so, like, the last six
Cool.
months of last year, I was so busy with touring that I didn't really have the
Right.
time to get started with Savvy Speaks. But now I'm starting on Savvy Speaks,
Okay.
and maybe it's also going to be like a Speaks podcast as well, because I'm thinking, okay, like, what's another way to get my message across, or
Yeah. Yeah.
and so reaching as many people as possible, right? And so
Hmm.
Savvy Speaks is kind of an evolution of DJ Savvy. And so the main goal of Savvy Speaks is to just um, spread my message, I guess, to as many people as possible, and talk about things that matter, talk about things that, like, inspire and uplift people, and using my personal experiences as the foundation for that, right? So I think about, like, I want to really focus on, like, my main goal is to focus on confidence and authenticity, basically. And so, like, my experience has been, because again, it's been very varied, and it's been like, entrepreneurship and Latin dance and competition and teaching and DJing and music production. And so it's like all of those things, they really required, like, the confidence in
Right.
yourself to actually do it. And so my main
Yeah.
thing is that I realize and I recognize that many people are, and kind of what I spoke to at the beginning, like, many people are, um, they want to do something different. They want to go and, like, live their dreams and pursue their dreams, but there's like a fear there that's keeping
Yeah.
them from doing that. And so I want to use my voice and my experiences as a way to encourage and inspire and uplift other people to pursue their passions and pursue their goals. So if they want to become entrepreneurs, like, do it, do it smartly, but do it, like, what are the
Yeah.
steps? And this is also part of the coaching, right? And so it's like the coaching also enables me to help people figure these things out. And
Yeah.
so taking my experiences of, like, okay, the confidence that was needed for me to, go on stage and compete at a world level, the confidence that was needed for me to put myself out there to be a DJ, the confidence that was needed for me to start in music production, and really, like, owning myself and owning my authenticity and owning who I really am, right? And so helping other
Very
people to
awesome.
do that, because my life didn't start to get amazing until I really just truly embraced who I was. And so I want to inspire and uplift other people to do that as well. So that's the goal with Savvy Speaks. And
Cool.
yeah, so
I love that.
yeah.
No, it's definitely a big why.
Yeah.
Within there, I think that's easy for me to follow along with. I'm sure listening as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah,
Easy
well,
to.
and even the name, like, even the name for me was a confidence leap, right? And so, because
Right.
I'm the type of person that, historically speaking, I've always really compartmentalized my life. And so it was like work was in one compartment and family was in one compartment, and relationships were in one compartment and dance was in another compartment. And then I realized that by compartmentalizing all of these different parts of me, I was actually never truly whole in any part of them. And so it was kind of
Interesting.
like, okay, Savvy Speaks is symbolically going to be encapsulating all of me, because it would be very easy for me to try to hide DJ Savvy from, the business world. It would be very
Totally.
easy because, it's like, oh, people aren't like, this is my fears and my projections. Like, people aren't going to take me seriously because I'm a DJ, or people aren't going to take me
Right.
seriously because I'm a dancer, And
Hmm.
so, but then I realized that I'm actually not being true to my whole authentic self by doing that. So even the name in and of itself is about me embracing everything that I am. And that's also what I want to help other people to do as well.
Awesome. I think that was a fantastic recap. I love it. And you know what? I think a lot of people do fear that with certain things in the work environment or outside of it, whether they have a
Mm-hmm.
job or they are entrepreneurial, about sharing, yeah, different things that they're involved in. Because I think it's often frowned upon. I mean, this is a lived experience too from working in corporate gigs. They don't really want you to do other stuff. Like they don't
Yeah.
really want to hear about it. Like,
Yeah, they
um,
like, it's just like you come in, you do your 9 to 5, and you go home, and it's like they don't really want to know or care about the life that you have outside in the world, and that's the
yeah,
kind of culture and environment that I guess I'm fighting against. I
yeah. I think a
don't
lot
want to
of
say
it's
fighting because
yeah.
that implies like antagonism or something, but yeah.
No, no, definitely hear it. I think it used to be very real and true. Like it was kind of
Yeah, I
like
think it's
if you
getting
weren't,
better. It's getting better. I
yeah,
mean, I haven't been in corporate Canada for a while now, but yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
neither.
I think with COVID, there was a lot of intermingling of home and work life,
Yeah,
out of necessity. And so I think it's becoming more generally accepted, but I think there's still a bit of a stigma associated with it. Like, what, you have extracurricular activities? What, you
yeah,
have a family?
yeah, yeah. It's kind of which is crazy because it's only
Yeah.
realistically, if you are doing 9 to 5, a third of your entire day, understanding you're probably sleeping for maybe a third if you're getting the right amount of sleep, dare I say.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, like, yeah, you have all this other time to do a ton of stuff, whatever that
Mhm.
looks like, but, yeah, it is kinda interesting to feel that pressure. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that very easily. I definitely
Mhm.
can.
Mhm.
In certain circumstances, being, younger in corporate world, not married, not kids and other stuff, there were certain expectations to either, like, like, stay out later, entertain clients, customers, and stuff. Meanwhile, I
Mhm.
wanna get up early and work out or whatever. It's kinda like, "Well, why can't you do that?" And other people have
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
kinda
Yeah.
their, allowable excuses kinda thing to not do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but it always seemed like there was a little extra pressure. Early on in the career, maybe that is the case. Um, you have to work a little bit more, do a little bit more time. But yeah, I think
Mhm.
it's awesome when people can pull skill sets from other areas, whatever it may be, DJing, dancing, whatever it is. Because there's always outside networks. If you're thinking true entrepreneurial like you do,
Well, yeah,
and drag that
it's not
into
even
corporate.
yeah, it's not even just networks, but it's also just like skills. Like, I
Totally.
learned
Yeah.
more about team building from my dance team than I ever did in the
Right.
corporate workplace. Because I don't
Yeah.
know if you know anything about like dance teams, right? But it's so like if we're putting a
Not
routine
enough.
together, yeah, if we're putting a routine together and there's 5 couples, right? So there's 5 couples, which means there's 10 people, and then we're moving around the stage like in sync with each other, and so it's like
Yep.
10 people and 5 different couples trying to work together to
Okay.
get the spacing on the stage and stuff. We call it formations or blocking, right? And so then it's
Okay.
all about like working together, not only with just your partner that you're dancing with, but also with all the other people who are on the stage with you, right? So you learn a heck of a lot more about proper team building, and synergy and things like that than you ever would in the corporate world, for sure. So
Definitely.
yeah, so
No, I think that's very relatable how things can be
mhm.
so transferable, and you're not just thinking
Yeah, yeah, and I
A and
think
B kind of thing. So
yeah, and I think there's such a narrow focus of like you can only learn skills at university, or you can only
right,
learn yeah, like
yes,
through these like primary education systems, or like the standard
yeah,
education system, right? And there's so many
yeah,
more ways to build skills and abilities than just that way, right?
definitely. I mean, you did a shout out to YouTube with learning how to use I think it was your first DJ. What was it called? Board.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah,
like
I took a
yeah,
YouTube course, like,
yeah.
right?
No, there's tons of stuff out there. I mean,
There's
we've
tons of, you can learn almost anything. Like, I bet you could learn surgery on YouTube, honestly. Like,
they still might
but
want you to go through the process, but I bet
yeah, I'm
I
not
get
sure
your
that I
point.
would trust a surgeon
Yeah,
who
yeah.
would learn from YouTube, but I bet you could learn a lot.
No, I definitely agree with that. There's more than one
Yeah.
way to learn, so and especially because people learn in different ways too. I mean, there's lots
Oh,
of
yeah.
I mean, actually in the medical side of things, it's like the year 3 and 4, and there's a lot of shadowing. You're more learning on site. You obviously have to have like a base of,
Yeah, well, and it
incredible
comes to
intelligence.
practical experience, right? And I think,
Yeah,
like, I think like one of the big problems with the education system is that it's like basically you're forcing people to learn in only one way, right? It's a very
yeah,
linear way to learn, and if you don't learn in that way, like then you're seen as a failure, right? Like, and I don't think that's a healthy way to be teaching people like how to think, right? Like just because your brain doesn't operate in this way, it doesn't mean that you're, you know,
yeah.
it's it's a conundrum, but
It is. No, I think that's Samantha. We're kind of coming towards the end of the episode here. What's the best way that people can follow you, either like online, but we'll include the links below anyways, but just to say it out loud here, what's the best way to get connected with you and your story?
yeah, so I have a few platforms. I'm available on LinkedIn as Samantha Fast. So just search Samantha Fast and you should find me
Okay.
there. And then for my Facebook and Instagram are more solely dedicated to the dance and DJ world, but you can follow me
Okay.
there. It's at DJ Savvy Kids. So that's DJ SAVVY KIZ. DJ Savvy Kids for Facebook and Instagram. And I do not have TikTok.
Okay, not yet.
because 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 of the technology, I'm just like, oh man,
Right.
that's like just another social media thing, and so
You're
it
too
gets
far.
overwhelming after a while.
That definitely does. Yes.
Yeah.
No. No, I think that's awesome. And thank you for just we're just really opening getting started, I think, on the story sharing here, Samantha. But it's been great having you on
Yeah.
today, and
Well,
we
and
really
also
appreciate. Yes.
stay tuned. Actually, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Stay
No, no,
tuned
it's all good.
for Savvy Speaks YouTube. I'm putting it out into the
Okay.
universe. So
Okay, it's coming soon. It's
yeah,
happening.
coming soon.
No, I think that's great. We'll include all those links, after the episode here. So check those out below. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. I know I talked
Yeah.
a lot.
No, likewise. I learned a lot. I'm sure listener learns
Good.
a lot too. So we'll
Okay.
chat soon.
Okay. Bye.